Taylor, stop texting me.
Taylor did something in Animal Crossing.
Taylor in Animal Crossings. Trying to film here, bro. Sis. Look at that. That's what you call hydration. It's like my face just took a nice long water break. Hello everyone! Me again. Are you getting annoyed of me yet? I hope not. My name is Samantha Gutierrez, and this is my conspiracy theory, alien, crazy, paranormal YouTube channel. I did something cool with my hair. Now listen, I still have to tone it. It's a little yellowy, okay? Do you like it? I'm a fan, I'm digging it. I've never done anything crazy like this with my hair before, so for now, I'm a fan. If you're weird like me and find yourself in rabbit holes of conspiracy theories and alien stories and paranormal stories, then you should hit subscribe. I'm here for you every Monday to talk about all these crazy weird things. Well, I try to be here for you every Monday, but because I'm not very technologically advanced, sometimes it takes a little longer than Monday. But I try to be here every Monday for you. Once a week, hopefully. For now, that's how things are going. Today, we're gonna be talking about an alien abduction. The alien abduction of Travis Walton. Something's up with my throat. Travis Walton grew up in Snowflake, Arizona. And just to preface this story, he wasn't really interested in anything paranormal or sci-fi at a young age. He was just your average dude. Partier, he liked to drink. He was raised Mormon. I don't know why that's even being added into here. I just thought that was an interesting fact that he was raised as a Mormon. Travis ended up getting into forestry as his profession, which is like, obviously, it's in the forest. They trim trees and stuff. Kind of like landscapers, but it's more of a big tree situation. They probably chop trees down. And so he was on a team of himself plus 6 men. The men that he worked with, he didn't really consider them his friends, which is important to this story because they're all involved in this. But yeah, he didn't really consider them his friends. They were just cordial with each other. Some days they would get along, other days they would just fight, and they were kind of like girls, you know? They just got into a lot of little hissy fits with each other. I feel like that's normal to happen. When you work with the same people every single day, you kind of just like start getting on each other's nerves, unless you really click with them. So it's November 5th, 1975. Travis and his team are in a truck. They all drove to their job site together. So they would take one of the team members' truck and they were on their way. They were working on a contract with Apache Sitgreaves National, that is a mouthful, Apache Sitgreaves National Forest. And they were thinning the trees and then piling them so that they could be burned. That's what their job was here. So they spent all day doing that, and it was the end of the day and they were all excited to go home. They were wide awake. They would spend the morning drive there sleeping, and then they would be up and at 'em when they got there. And on the way back, they were so like ready to go home that they were just kind of like pumped up from the day of physical labor. So they're all in the truck, you know, shooting the shit, talking about their day when they see like a glowing light in the forest. They didn't really think anything of it at first. They thought maybe it was just like some hunters in the woods, maybe some campers, a campsite of some sort, a campfire. But the closer they got, the more clear it was that this was no campfire. Also, funny side note, last time I said how all my brushes were dirty, I got a bunch of new brushes instead of just cleaning my brushes. And to take things one step further into the lazy life, I got a color removal sponge so that I don't have to wash my new ones. You can just swirl it around. It's a dry sponge, it cleans it. So they knew that this wasn't a campfire because the light was coming from like above ground level. They could tell where the ground was, and this light was clearly coming from like above. But at this point they were still just curious, not really thinking anything crazy, just like, ooh, I wonder what that could be. They ended up coming to the conclusion that they thought it was just a tree that was like on fire from being struck by lightning. They've seen it happen before, and it was a pretty common occurrence in the area that they were in. So they're still traveling towards the light, and they're getting closer and closer, and they end up getting up close to it and realizing that this was no tree on fire. No, it was a craft. Travis said that the whole surface of this craft was like glowing and that it was lighting up the entire area around it. But he did say that the light was kind of strange though. It was an unusual kind of light, not like one that we have ever seen before. And by that I assume he just means that there's not really a way he can describe the kind of light it was, just that it's like we've never seen it before. So he can't describe what it was like. So they pulled over to the side of the road, and Travis thought it would be wise to get out of the car and pursue the light. Guys, what's the first rule? Don't pursue the enemy. You run away from the enemy as far away as you can. You're just asking for trouble. So naturally, his friends were like, dude, get back in the damn car. Why are you doing this to us? They knew they were about to see some crazy shit. So Travis was looking up at this thing. He was like almost directly underneath of it. And suddenly it started getting louder, like a humming noise, and it started to move. He instinctively ducked down to get out of its way, and his friends were like, Travis, get back in the car. But he didn't. He crouched down and kept approaching it. When he got close enough to it to realize that he was probably making a mistake, he finally turned around and started heading back to the truck, like running, when out of nowhere, he felt like a numbing shock jolt through his body. And later he would say that he didn't really hear or feel anything at this point, that he just kind of lost consciousness. But what his friends witnessed was a bright neon light, like a greenish blue light, shock his body and throw him 15 feet from where he was standing. So all of his co-workers thought he was dead at this point. They described the sound that his body made when hitting the ground like a sack of meat. Like, it didn't sound like he had any bones in his body. They were convinced that Travis was a goner. So impulsively, the drivers started the truck and all the guys were like, get out of here, and then they took off. They did not waste any time getting the hell up out of there. So they were all frantic, driving away, and after a few minutes, they decided that they were gonna go back and check on him. So their first instinct was to drive away and get away from them, but their better judgment took over and they decided to go back and check on Travis. They were very nervous. They thought that they were gonna go back and see his body all like charred and blistered and just burned alive. So they're making their way back and they found exactly where they were because they could see where the tires spun out on the road when they hightailed it out of there. His body, y'all, was nowhere to be found. Just gone, vanished, vamoose, kapush, poof. So, to Travis, this is his recounting of the story. He's unconscious. He's coming in and out of consciousness. He remembers waking up for brief moments and being in so much pain that he just passed right back out. He finally regained consciousness for long enough to look and see where he was at. His vision was very blurry though at this point still. So he thought that he woke up and he was in a hospital room. He could hear movement around him, and he thought that this was doctors shuffling around him. He thought his friends came back, found him, and took him to a hospital to be treated. Boy, was he wrong. Once his eyes focused, he realized that these were not doctors shuffling around him. They were creatures. He claims that when he realized that what he was hearing and seeing moving around him was creatures, he just flipped his lid. He started kicking and screaming and freaking out, as one would do should they find themselves in a situation like this. Unless you're weird and think aliens are cool or something. Just kidding, you're not weird. Well, you are, but being weird is cool. Normal's boring. Even though his body was in so much pain, he managed to roll away from where the creatures were in this little room. He also managed to like grab a tool of some sort off of the table that was right near him. And when he got this tool, he was like towards these creatures. This kind of freaked the creatures out and they scurried out of the room. He didn't hit them though. They were too far away for him to make contact, but it freaked him out. So they were like, okay, we out of here. So they leave the room and they go to the right. So Travis described these creatures as being very small, hairless creatures with huge eyes. They had grayish white skin and were only like 3 or 4 feet tall. Tiny little dudes. He said that when they were in the room, they just kept staring at him with their big old eyes. That is so creepy. He said that they were wearing orangish brown coveralls. So when he swiped at the creatures, they left the room, like I said, and they went to the right. So Travis mustered up the energy to get up and try and escape. He left the room too, and since they went to the right, he decided to go to the left. He saw buttons on the wall. In his head, he was like, I really hope that one of these buttons opens the door so I can jump out and get back down to the ground. Well, the buttons didn't do anything at all. So then a man with blue coveralls came into the room that he was in, and he looked to have been human. So he was like, oh yes, my savior. He thought that this thing was here to rescue him from these monsters. He wanted Travis to go with him, so he followed him because at this point, Travis trusted him. He thought that he was saving him. So he followed him into this little like passageway that Travis said he thought was an airlock because it was a lot easier to breathe in there and it was like colder in there. So this led him to believe that this passage led him to a larger ship or a building of some sort. The man was moving quickly like he was in a hurry, and Travis was asking him a bunch of questions, but he wasn't answering. Travis thought that maybe he wasn't answering because this human thing was wearing like a big helmet, like a clear, like an astronaut helmet. So he thought that maybe this helmet was preventing him from being able to like talk. So he didn't really think anything of it. Plus they were in a hurry, so he was like, okay, maybe he's just not answering me. So he was led into another room with other human-like creatures that he thought were humans. They looked just like him. They were wearing the same outfit. The only difference is that these creatures weren't wearing a helmet. So Travis started asking them the questions. They weren't answering either. They pointed to a table and they were like, lay down on this table without speaking. And at this point, Travis started to become concerned. He started to realize that he didn't think that these creatures were actually humans. So he starts freaking out and resisting. He doesn't want to lay down on this table. He's like, no, I'd rather not. Oh, thanks. Maybe next time. Oh, this thing is nice. Music to my ears. So they forced him onto the table. They were like, all right, we're done playing games with you. Lay the hell down. Travis said that a couple of them were women and they all looked to be like in the same family because they kind of looked similar. They had like blondish hair, and he said that they were the typical height of a human. They weren't short like the other alien dudes. But he said that the females had like enough strength to hold him down on the table. You go, girls. He also said that the woman that he saw, and he got a good close-up look of her, was very attractive. Maybe he should have stayed and spit some game, you know? Oh, that side looks dumb. I always mess up somewhere. Can't just have a seamless makeup experience. He later would say that because he was acting problematic, he thinks that maybe the aliens used like an android or something, or a couple androids that look like humans, to make him a little bit more compliant and less problematic, but he's not sure. This eye is patchy. It's bothering me. Apache. Sit, Greaves. Get it? So these human dudes, oh no, that was a lot. So these human dudes, they proceed to administer anesthesia through a gas mask. And that's the last thing Travis remembers on the ship. The next thing he remembers is waking up, feeling cold air going through his clothes, and it being dark. And he was laying in the road. He looked up to see the craft flying away, and he just was overwhelmed with a sense of relief. He was so happy to be on Earth again. So he got up and he starts walking down the street, and he said that it was about a 6-mile walk to the nearest town. When he got to town, he stopped at the Exxon gas station and used their phone booth. The first person that he called was one of his friends, and when he called his friend, he learned that 5 days and 6 hours had passed. So the police ended up coming to the gas station to get a report from Travis. They did not believe his story about the abduction. They thought he was crazy, but they did tell him that there was an ongoing investigation for his murder. His co-workers were the men in question for his murder. They had a search party and everything. All of his co-workers ended up passing polygraph tests that they did not kill Travis. They also all took a polygraph test to see if they were telling the truth about the UFO story, because they all told the same story, and they all passed except for one, which was someone who had like an ongoing beef with Travis, and his results weren't a fail, but they were just inconclusive, and They think that the reason it was inconclusive is just because he kind of like had a rivalry with Travis. There were also a lot of cow mutilations. If you watch my videos, this isn't the first time we're hearing about cow mutilations. There were a lot of them in this area, so people weren't really surprised to hear of this story because there's a lot of funky crap going on around this town anyway. All of Travis's co-workers ended up being too scared to return to work, so they resigned from their positions at the forestry company. And Travis ended up undergoing many different sets of testing. He had both blood and urine tests that night to see if he was under the influence of any drugs, because people kind of thought that he was hallucinating and just like had a drug-induced trip. His results came back clean as a whistle. But that wasn't enough for some. Then people started saying that, oh, he just had temporary psychosis. So he underwent a battery of psychological tests. All came back clean as a whistle. He's not cuckoo, guys. So at this point, Travis was becoming annoyed because like 7 people were all giving the same story and nobody believed them. His logic was that if 7 men came in and all said that this guy murdered someone, there would be no question about it. Everyone would believe them. So he's like, why aren't people believing us about this? We all agree and we've taken polygraph tests. So he was like, man, the heck do I gotta do to get y'all to believe me? I'm gonna do my lips off camera really quick. I'll be right back. So Travis himself, he didn't return to work for quite a few years after the incident. He was traumatized. He just needed time to like get himself right again. He ultimately ended up deciding to go back to work at a paper mill factory. At a paper mill, not factory. And that's where he ended up carrying out the rest of his career. He did end up getting married and he had 4 children, 2 girls, 2 boys. Where's my mascara? All right, where's my mascara, Mom?
I don't know, what does it look like?
Assistant! I got it. All right, I'm gonna go put these eyelashes on quick and I'll be right back. It's just easier this way, okay? So later after the incident occurred, it was noticed that the trees in the area that all of this happened would actually grow like twice as fast as usual. The trees grew as much as they would grow in 80 years in 15 short years. And this was due to radiation levels that they recorded being in the area. You would think that radiation would like kill stuff, but apparently that was not the case. Does anybody remember talking about radiation levals? Skinwalker Ranch. Apparently spacecrafts output a lot of radiation. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I like it a lot. There was also a movie made about Travis's abduction called Fire in the Sky, which was named after a book that Travis wrote about this. Travis says that in the movie there's a lot of like embellishments and a lot of stuff left out that he wishes would have been in the movie. So if you want a clear, accurate, detailed description of Travis's abduction, then go check his book out. It's called Fire in the Sky. A lot of people still think that this was a big hoax, but I mean, lie detector tests, y'all. Those are hard to beat. You're right. So, has anyone heard of this story before? What do you think? Do you think it's the truth? I do. Thanks again for joining me today on our alien story. Let me know in the comments what you want to hear about next, and I will see y'all next time. Thank you for watching.
Throw that, that's what she wants.
You want it?
Throw it over here.
Psychopath. Why are cats insane? My assistant isn't being very helpful. Now everyone knows you're an abusive mom.
Everyone who knows and watches this knows that you're the abusive one.
I'm not abusive.
Okay.
I'm not abusive.
Just
I'm feisty. You raised me.
Yeah. I don't know how that happened.
I know, I just turned out such like a crappy person, didn't I? Such a disappointment. Anyways, back to Travis' dumbass. And let me know if you guys like my hair. Is it cool? Am I cool now?